Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. To ask a question during the question and answer session later, please press star then 1 on your touch-tone phone. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect. I would like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Lauren Elder-Reed. Ma'am, you may begin.
Good afternoon, everyone, to those of you in the room and on the phone. Thank you for attending EOIR's webinar and conference call and in-person meeting on the new eRegistry. We're glad to see so much interest in the program and want everyone to be aware of what's coming on Monday, so we're happy to see so much interest. We'll get started with the presentation. Oh, and I'm sorry. As the operator said, my name is Lauren Elder-Reed, and I'm the Counsel for Legislative and Public Affairs here at the Executive Office for Immigration Review. So what is eRegistry? eRegistry is what EOIR has created as a user-friendly online registry that will allow folks to have eventually electronic case access and a filing system. This was initially implemented through a proposed rule in the Federal Register in 2003. And at that time, when we solicited comment, we received 7 letters of comment. Part of those comments, so that you know that they were actually read and considered, were from law clinics that expressed concern regarding law students. And so one of the changes that EOIR made based on the comments received was that law students would in fact not be registering. The reason for that is the transient nature of the clinic students and the fact that though we could really ensure that they're getting into the system, it would be very difficult to make sure that they're getting out of the system. And one of the reasons, as we'll get into later, that we're implementing this eRegistry is to make sure that we know who is in fact representing respondents in immigration court and before the Board of Immigration Appeals. Moving forward into most recent history, on April 1st, we published the final rule in the Federal Register, and we've received a few comments on that, which are undergoing review, but the comment period has in fact closed. Just so you know, the OCIJ practice manual has been updated and posted online, and the BIA will be doing the same with their updated manual on Monday. So in terms of folks who want to review the practice manual and the steps that are involved in those various sections within the OCIJ and BIA practice manual, you will see those online either currently for OCIJ or again on Monday for the BIA. You might be wondering, how is this pursuant to the Government Paperwork Elimination Act? And again, this will eventually be part of a greater electronic filing system. Immediately, you will see the ability to do EOIR 27s and EOIR 28s in some situations through this eRegistry process. So that's one piece of paper that you don't have to continue to use. So we are looking forward to, in the future, reducing even more additional paperwork for all those who are before EOIR. In order to do this, in order to get the benefit that we want from the electronic filing for ourselves and for all those who appear before EOIR, we need to have all attorneys and all fully accredited representatives register. So there's a little bit of an error here on the slide. It says all accredited reps. It's only fully accredited reps. It is not partially accredited reps, just to make that clear. As I said, it's the initial step in moving towards an electronic filing system. And the purpose is to ensure unique identification of every person who appears in representative status before the courts and the board. That is what eRegistry will provide, is this unique and individual registration information. We expect that our efficiency will be increased because we'll be reducing system errors and scheduling matters and providing improved notice to attorneys and accredited reps, fully accredited reps. We also expect that in the future, the eventual filing system will reduce the time and expense that's presently occurred with paper filings. And again, in order to have that happen, it needs to be universal, everyone who's appearing before the courts and board. Also, you'll see on here combating notario fraud. As you may be aware, the Executive Office for Immigration Review is part of an initiative with our federal partners to make sure that we're combating notario fraud. We're working to build the capacity of good actors and get out the fraudsters. And this is a very big deal for our director and for our agency, and something that we've been working on officially with our federal partners since June 2011, although of course the discussions have been had long before that. We expect that the fact that before a registry account is approved and an EOIR ID issued, there's the second step of the registry process, which we will get into later, that is identity verification. So after you enter your information online, you will also be required to present a photo ID at a physical EOIR location to ensure that you are who you say you are. So allowing that step of accountability, we expect, will help us get out the notarios from practicing immigration law before the courts and the board. Also, you'll have a unique EOIR ID number that you'll be required to put on any EOIR 27 or 28, and that will assist adjudicators in more readily identifying your status as a registrant with the courts and the board. The system will launch, as most of you know by now, I'm sure, on Monday. That's June 10th of this year. And by December 10th of this year, it is a requirement that you be registered through eRegistry. Want to note that the system is not tested for mobile devices. So if you use a mobile device like an iPad, you may experience some difficulties with the system. We recommend that you use a laptop, desktop, regular old computing system, nothing too new wave. eRegistry is free to you. It will not cost. There is no registration fee, not for an initial sign-up or any annual fee or anything like that, as may be experienced in other similar systems. What will you need to put in your initial registry process, the online portion? You'll need to provide your name, your business address and telephone number, your date of birth, your email address, and then for attorneys, bar information, and for recognized organizations, or excuse me, for fully accredited reps, your recognized organization. If you are an attorney, you'll be asked for your bar number. If your state does not have bar numbers, that's fine. It will not be a required field for you. At that time, you will also establish a user ID and password for yourself. Those will be items that you choose, so hopefully you can remember them. There will also be, however, fail-safe for you if you've forgotten your password. Like most systems with which we're all familiar at this point, you will be able to go in and retrieve that information if you've forgotten it by answering security questions that you will choose. The information we collect, a lot of people are concerned about security on the internet these days, understandably so. Know that all the collected information is protected by the Privacy Act of 1974 and will be part of a published system of records, which is what we are required to do under the Privacy Act. EOIR can disclose the information under routine uses that are specified in a system of records notice, and any changes to that will be published so that you will be aware in the Federal Register. The address and phone number that you provide should be those that you normally receive your business correspondence. In other words, if you're an attorney who works out of your home, you would need to include your home address. If you use your cell phone as your primary business phone, you would want to include your cell phone. Date of birth information, it would not be published, but it is necessary for our verification purposes and to differentiate and identify individuals in the registry. In other words, if there's two John Does and one was born in January and one was born in December, we'll be able to know the difference between John Doe when he's appearing in the immigration court to represent someone. Originally, if you read the proposed rule, we were collecting the last four digits of the registrant Social Security number. We are no longer doing that. That was deemed unnecessary. So moving on to what you will see on Monday. This is the original screen when you register, and you see you can choose either attorney or fully accredited representative based on your status. The screens, I'll explain which screen we're on, but as you can see on this, it has firm affiliations and bar affiliations. Those will obviously not be relevant if you choose the fully accredited representative button. Instead, it would indicate your recognized organization. Here is when you choose your user ID, and it gives you the standards for your user ID, many of which you've probably seen before in other internet requirements. Same thing with your password. It will tell you what you need to do with your password, also of your own choice within those constraints. Then you provide your account information, and what we've discussed already, your name, your date of birth, your email address. And first we'll talk about the attorneys. The attorneys will provide their firm name, again, the business address and telephone that you use for your correspondence, and your email, and your bar affiliations. As mentioned, you will select your jurisdiction, and then if a bar number is applicable, include that information as well. Then you'll see this screen, and it will give you back all the information that you've input into the system. You'll acknowledge the perjury statement. If you are a fully accredited rep, here's the screen you will see after inputting your regular account information. Again, organization name, address, business address, and telephone, along with email. And again, you will have your review screen as well, acknowledging the perjury statement. Then this is how you will know you have submitted the online portion. You will see the information saying that it's been received or submitted to EOIR for processing, and it will tell you one of the types of identification that you need to take to an immigration court to proceed with the second step of registry, which is the identity verification. We'll get to this a little more, but identity verification will take place at each immigration court and also at the Board of Immigration Appeals. The information for that is on the website under the Engage with EOIR page in the right side box. And if you click there, you'll see identity verification as one of the hyperlinks. And then you can choose your individual immigration court to see what times and days are available to you for registration. Also, the Board of Immigration Appeals information is at the bottom of that page for your review. You will also receive an email, and this is what the email will look like. It will basically tell you the same thing that the confirmation screen did, that EOIR has received your information for processing and that you need to proceed to step 2, the photo verification or identity verification. Again, we talked a little bit about security of information. The information there, doing the identity verification will eliminate the need for EOIR to collect and maintain evidence of identity. So in other words, we don't need to make copies of any of your photo identification. We just need to see that it's you and compare it to the system and know that we have the right person. When you go into eRegistry, you'll need to enter your user ID and your password for each session. So that is how your information will be kept secure. Only you know your user ID and password. We've received some questions prior to this event about whether an attorney, for instance, can share the registration information with the paralegal. Well, we can't stop you from doing that. Just like any computer system, we do say keep your user ID and password secure. So whatever you deem to be secure is within your decision. Each session, will be on an encrypted connection, and that will protect any data that you are inserting into the system. That includes your basic registration information, and if you choose to file A27s and 28s, your 27s and 28s, that will also be delivered over that encrypted connection. It is stored on a fully secured server that's in compliance with FIDISMA, and you only have access to your own information. We've had some questions also about an attorney and fully accredited rep database that will not be in existence on eRegistry. You will have access only to your own information. If you have an issue that you feel that someone else has accessed your account, this is the email address, eregistration.support@usdoj.gov. You will want to contact. That information is, of course, available on the webpage itself. As we discussed, identity verification is the second portion of the process for registrants. And again, this is the website that you can access in order to check what information is specific to the immigration court closest to you. And again, the board is also available for identity verification. These are the acceptable forms of identification. We also have these on the website and pictures of the documents in case you're unsure what something might look like that is necessary. The biggest part of it is it needs to have a photograph and your date of birth and be federally issued or state issued. In some situations, you will be able to file the EOIR 27 and 28, as we have discussed. It is, however, strictly optional at this time. The caveat here is once you're registered, you will need to include your EOIR ID from the eRegistry system, even on your paper filing. While we ask that you do that from the moment you filed, it will not be required until December 10th of this year. This is what you will see when you are registered. When you're ready to get into the system, you've completed steps 1 and 2. This is the screen you will see. You accept that you know that you're entering into a government information system and all of the requirements that come with that. And then this is your main screen. When you have not registered, you would see the account registration link. However, when you're ready, you can log in. If you've forgotten your user ID or password, there is an availability, as we've mentioned, that you can answer your security questions to retrieve those. But logging in will allow you to get to this screen and put your username and password. And then here is where you can file electronic forms. As we said, it's the EOIR 27 and 28 in some situations. You can also update your information or reset your password. If you need to edit your information, this is what you would see, your user profile screen where you can edit, add your new organization. That would be useful, of course, if you have left your, for a law firm, it would be a firm, of course. If you've left your law firm or your organization and you wish to replace the information that is primary to you, you would do that. If you're associated with more than one organization or law firm, you would add that here as well. Again, all attorneys and fully accredited reps who wish to appear before the immigration courts and the Board of Immigration Appeals must complete the two-step process. That includes the online portion and the photo identity verification by December 10th of this year. Failure to do so may result in administrative suspension from practice before EOIR's adjudicative bodies. Such suspension can be lifted after the individual completes the registration process. And that concludes the presentation. Operator, if we can open the lines to phones. And for those of you on the phone, we do have several people in the room as well, so we will alternate as appropriate between those questions in the room and those on the phone.
Thank you. If you'd like to ask a question over the phone lines, please press star then 1. And one moment, please.
And while we wait, I'll ask if there's any questions in the room. Mm-hmm.
After December 10th, how will
It'll be the same process. They can.
I know right now they're on 15 times.
For the photo verification? You know, that's interesting, and I actually don't know the answer to that question. We can add that information to our FAQs online. We'll make sure that we do that within the next week. But if you would like a specific answer back to you, go ahead and feel free to email us at pao.eoir@usdoj.gov. Be happy to get back to you.
The courts will have hours after the initial period. We'll have regular hours after. We've got a special process. I'm not going to serve chief question. We had it set up.
Mark, if you're going to answer, can you come to the microphone, please, on the phone? It's fine. I just don't want them to not get the benefit of your answer.
We'll have hours after the initial period. Every court has. It'll be an ongoing process where you'll have regular hours. Some courts will be by appointment. Some courts will be just regular business hours for the court. Most courts are regular business hours for validation. Okay.
So attorneys will have to undergo both steps before they file a brief or a hearing. Again, after December 10th.
Yes, after December 10th, it is a requirement before you appear in immigration court or actively representing clients to become the client of the attorney of record. You would need to be online. Filing the E27 or E28 will remain optional in terms of doing it electronically, but since you'll need to file it and put your EOIR ID on there, the only way to get that EOIR ID is through eRegistry. So, yes?
So my name is Heidi Allman. I'm with the Capital Immigrants.
Hi, Heidi.
We're an LLC provider. We refer a lot of students to pro bono. So I think our concerns may be similar to those that were raised by law school clinics, in that a lot of the attorneys who volunteer to take our cases may only ever do one immigration court case over the course of their career. So we're concerned that this may feel somewhat onerous and maybe prohibitive to folks who are being used for cases. So I guess my question is first, what you anticipate the delay to be between that in-person appearance and the receipt of the EOIR number that will allow you to make your first appearance? And then second, whether there might be any accommodation for pro bono attorneys who are appearing in one or two cases.
Sure. The question in the room was regarding pro bono attorneys, those who wish to represent respondents in immigration court or before the board free of charge, and the effect that eRegistry may have on them. There's a concern that there may be a negative effect on the ability to do pro bono work because of, as it was named, a burden to register. We don't believe that pro bono representation will be significantly affected. We're certainly open to continuing a conversation about that, but our evaluation of the situation is that because this really is an easy one-time event, our estimate was 10 minutes. I think that's generous personally, to fill in the information that you need to online, and then showing the photo ID. We really feel that it's something that can be done fairly easily without too much burden, as we have described it. We also, internet and registry is becoming more and more common in other court systems, and use of the computer is certainly not something that's foreign to those who are coming out of law school. So we feel like it's something that people are used to and are even possibly expecting in many scenarios, and so immigration court and the board shouldn't really be different.
Can I clarify?
Sure.
I think the concern is more about that first trip to the immigration court, and I don't know if that can be combined with your first appearance, which would certainly be helpful. But I think many of us are concerned that if, say, you are a pro bono attorney, you are taking a team case, and so you take the case on Monday, you have a master calendar on Wednesday, you have to, before that first appearance, make it to the court to be registered, and the court may be a few hours away. So, if it was possible to combine that physical appearance with the first appearance, that would certainly go a long way.
The immigration judges are certainly going to be understanding of the process. There are also exceptions to, if you're not registered, you can be given a one-time waiver, so to speak. So if you have, that's not to be used, broadly, and it's at the immigration judge's discretion. But if you come to immigration court on the day of an appearance and you've already done your online portion, and you come and you present your photo ID and you've done the steps, and you can say to the immigration judge, I have completed the registration process and just have not yet been able to access my account, that's something that is workable. Does that help?
Thank you.
Sure.
And I would like to extend sort of my worry about the impact we have on pro bono representation. I work for Clinic, Catholic Legal Immigration Network, and we rely on pro bono nationally to enter appearances for the board for cases on appeal. And a large number of our pro bono base does exist in states that don't even have an immigration court for them to do an in-person appearance. I think it will have a very, very serious impact on the project and our access to pro bonos, and I can imagine even for those who have situations in their local area doing pro bono. So I make a request that there be an alternative way for maybe a certain class pro bono to do the second portion. I do not think it's the eRegistry, the online form, that makes it a burden. I do think the in-person will be a severe burden for at least my project, and there are smaller projects nationwide that also do solely pro bono orientation or practice with pro bono in their.
The question in the room mostly echoed the previous question regarding pro bono work, except there's been an extension of that to make a request that you consider an exception for those doing pro bono work who may be in remote locations and find it burdensome to travel to an immigration court or the Board of Immigration Appeals to do the photo identity verification portion of registration. We certainly did receive comments on this during the comment period, and we're aware of it. Again, we feel like this is the way forward for us, and the only exception that was made at this point is for law students. As always, we're open to engaging in conversation, but that was the determination at this point. I'd also just like to add that in terms of burden, while the initial burden may exist in terms of having to travel to an immigration court for those in maybe not right in a quick drive to an immigration court, in the future as we proceed, and even now with EOIR 27th and 28th, the electronic filing of this will increase efficiencies for everyone involved, both the attorneys who are trying to do pro bono work and us, the agency on this side. So I'm going to turn to the phones, and then we'll come back to the room for questions. Operator, are there questions?
We have several. Rex Chen, your line is open at this time.
Good afternoon. I have several questions, so just cut me off when I should get back on the queue to ask additional questions. But my first question focuses on what I think is false information in what you published in the Federal Register. Can you please list for us all the reasons that you're doing eRegistry, and then I'll follow up to explain why there's a mistake in the Federal Register?
I can't tell you that I can tell you every reason that we're doing eRegistry, but I can certainly review the ones that I have named for you earlier. We are looking at the fact that it will increase efficiencies both for the immigration courts and for those who practice before the immigration courts, attorneys and fully accredited representatives. We also are noting that this is the first step towards what we hope, given resources available to us, will be electronic filing and a greater e-court system down the line. In addition, we have our federal partners, state and local partners, all are of great understanding, and many of you are as well, of the problem we have with notario fraud, and we do believe that verifying that we know who is in immigration court will prevent us from, or help us prevent those bad actors from appearing and victimizing respondents. And if you'd like to, you can tell me what's wrong.
Okay, well, it is disturbing that you're not able to tell us all the reasons that you're doing eRegistry when you're trying to convince us to do it, and that there's no promise you'll stick to your stated reasons because you don't even have the list. But there's a problem in the Federal Register because you published in the Federal Register that all of the reasons you're doing eRegistry are irrelevant towards ICE counsel, so there's no purpose for ICE counsel to eRegister. However, to require ICE counsel to eRegister would increase efficiency, help make a move towards an e-filing system, have a unique identifier for each person representing a party in the court, and also making sure the person is who they say they are. So they're really, your comments on why ICE counsel does not register actually include false information, and there's really no reason to exclude them.
Okay, well, I appreciate your comment. I can let you know that the purpose of the registry is to create a database of private attorneys and fully accredited reps who prefer EOIR. DHS counsel are federal employees, and they may include any officer assigned to represent DHS.
But I'll stop you there because your
Well, I'd like to
comments
finish, but I allowed you to speak, and I'd like the same opportunity, please.
Oh, but you're contradicting yourself.
And the DHS counsel, being federal employees, they may also be an officer assigned to DHS who are representing them in a proceeding before the immigration judge or the board. And the reasons for registering private attorneys and accredited representatives are simply not relevant to DHS counsel. We don't believe that it's likely that an unauthorized individual would represent DHS in your proceeding because they would be badged and also recognized by the Department of Homeland Security. Please go ahead.
I understand you've read the false information out again from the Federal Register, but you haven't addressed how you've contradicted yourself in stating several reasons for re-registry and then quoting the false information in the Federal Register that there's only one purpose for it and ignoring the others you've just told me. So I understand you've repeated the false information, but it doesn't really solve anything, and I hope you'll address it. And I think it's a flaw with the eRegistry program. I do have other questions, and I don't know.
Well, I'll first address what you just said. You're certainly entitled to your opinion, and we would welcome you to submit comment if you still feel that there's false information as you put it in the eRegistry. However, this has been worked on for a long time by this agency, and we're quite confident that the way that it's done is fair and appropriate.
Okay, should I go to another question, or do you want to have me wait on the queue? What would you like?
You can proceed to one more question.
Okay, one more question. Let's say there is an attorney who is sworn into a bar, and the bar has never required the person to have a photo ID, and this person has no photo ID on your required list. Will this person be allowed to practice even though they are unable to complete the photo ID check for eRegistry?
The second step of the process does require a presentation of one of the forms of photo ID listed on our website and during the webinar, if you're on the webinar. So in order to complete the process, you would need to present such photo ID at the identity verification phase in an immigration court or before the board. So to briefly answer your question, no, that person would not be permitted to appear in immigration court or before the Board of Immigration Appeals.
All right, so someone sworn into a bar and is a practicing lawyer and is allowed to practice law will be barred by EOIR, right?
If they do not have one of those forms of identification, they would not be able to complete registering.
Okay. I wonder if you think that's appropriate to limit the number of attorneys who can practice even though they're sworn in. Seems to me a bit draconian.
I do believe that the process is appropriate, yes. Thank you for your question. If you'd like to ask another, you may re-enter the queue.
Thank you.
Our next request now, Catherine Lampard, your line is open, ma'am.
Here's a smaller practical question. It looks to me like you all are, we will be submitting we would be choosing a password once and not having to have it expire every 90 days and select a new one like in the USCIS online system. Is that right?
That is my understanding. I'm going to look at my experts in the room and make sure, yes, our IT guy is here, and he's telling me that is correct. You will not need to reset your password unless you feel your account's been compromised or you just decided you don't like it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Operator, I'll take one more on the phone before I turn back to the room.
Yes, our last at this time, Carlos Posas, your line's open. Please check your mute button. Your line is open.
Sorry. Hi. Two questions. First, what is the URL for the website? Because I was on the phone, I couldn't see the slides with the address. The website that you referenced a couple of times?
All right. Well, the easiest way to send you back without having you write a million letters is if you go to www.justice.gov
Okay.
/EOIR.
Okay.
On the right-hand side of the page, you'll see a box called an Action Center.
Okay.
And the top link there is Engage with eOIR.
Okay.
If you click that link and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see eRegistry Initiative.
Okay.
And clicking that link will take you to all of the information that I discussed was available on the web.
Okay, great. And I guess my other question is, how does this impact telephonic appearances?
I guess I'm not sure. Could you?
Well, I mean, say, you know, prior to eRegistry, I'll file my E28 via mail to a remote courthouse, and then they'll accept it along with my motion for telephonic appearance. So I never physically actually go to the court when I make my appearance for my respondent.
Sure, that would still not be an issue. You're still welcome to file the form by paper. Electronic filing is optional, although you could presumably do that as well. And then the motion for telephonic appearance wouldn't change as long as you've already done the identity verification portion of eRegistry.
So it would, at some point, I'd have to show up prior to whatever appearance I'm filing a motion for telephonic appearance for. I'd have to show up physically at the courthouse to verify.
Correct, where all attorneys and fully accredited reps are required to register by December 10th.
Okay, and that's just once then?
Correct, yeah. You only have to appear in court one time to show your ID, and then you're in the system, you have your unique eOIR ID. Yeah, thank you for that clarifying question. That's helpful.
Okay, because you can see why the impression might be that every time you have an appearance, you have to physically show your ID.
Sure, that is definitely not the case. Thank you again for the clarifying question.
Okay.
Any other questions in the room? Yes.
Karen, I have a couple of them. The first one is, what about cases in which your appearance is already entered? Are you going to have to, at some time prior to December 10th, submit a new E27 or somehow, or E28 or otherwise provide the number to the court or the board, or is this only going to pertain to new entries of appearance, new matters after December 10th?
The question in the room was whether a new Form 27 or 28 would be required if an appearance has already been entered in a case. And believe it or not, we are not trying to provide extra burden for you, so no, you will not need to re-enter that form. It will only be those moving forward after December 10th, but we ask that it be so after your registration.
Okay, thanks. And can I take one more also?
Please. Sure.
On the question about bar admission, does that refer only to in the current form, the bar of the highest court of any state, or does that mean all the courts to which you're admitted? All the federal courts, the circuits, the non-immigration related courts? We're just looking to make sure that they're licensed. So if you include the states in which you're licensed, that's something. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Once an attorney is registered with eOIR, I realize it will take some time to set up an e-filing system, but will eOIR be able to notify attorneys who have registered of decisions in their cases by email rather than snail mail?
Immediately?
Yes.
Okay, the question in the room is whether eOIR will be able to notify attorneys who are registered in eRegistry of decisions in a case by email rather than snail mail immediately. There is no plan for that at this time.
A follow-up to Karen's question. So that's helpful that there won't actually have to be another filing. But on a pending case, let's say you had submitted an E28 and had an appearance in 2012. Before the next scheduled hearing, will the e-filing requirement exist, or does the entire e-filing requirement only apply to the matter?
So you're asking if a case is proceeding, but the next hearing is not until after the December 10th date?
And the attorney is not entering into any new matters. It's only this one proceeding that has been pending from before the registry requirement.
So the question in the room is whether a case that's proceeding past the December 10th deadline, where an attorney is representing only in this matter, would that person be required to register and submit the form? They would not fall under this. if it's their only case because that's the only case and they're not required to register for that case, then they would not need. However, if they proceed and appear in immigration court after December 10th, they would need to be registered so that they fall within the, I think I sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I'm not trying to. If they are doing the paper side of things and there's no appearance in immigration court after December 10th, there would not be a need to register, and there's certainly no need to file the new form. However, if they are going to make an appearance before an immigration court, an immigration judge, or the Board of Immigration Appeals, they would be required to register because that registry requirement is complete as of December 10th. Does that make sense? Okay. Makes sense in the room. I hope it does to those of you on the phone. I'll move back to the phone operator. Are there any questions in queue?
We have about a dozen right now. Carlin Williams, your line is open.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? Well, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So I work at the City Bar Justice Center, and we work with a lot of pro bonos, and I couldn't really hear the question in the room about pro bonos earlier, so I apologize if I'm repeating the question. And this sort of follows up on what you just answered, but the pro bonos that pick up a case, say, next January, what is the system going to be for registering in the system after December 10th? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It will be the same. Anyone who's going to appear in immigration court after December 10th will have been required to register through eRegistry, both the online portion and the in-person portion.
But they can do that after the December 10th deadline?
If they have no appearance in immigration court between December 10th and January.
Right, so they pick up the case in January. Like they're not even in this, they don't work with anything right now.
Correct. If they don't have any other cases, that would be fine. However, we would encourage people, because of the established hours already existing, we're trying to get as many people as possible to go ahead and register by December 10th.
Okay.
It would be to their benefit as well, in terms of...
Right, but we ship cases out when we get them. So if we get them, I'm just making sure that they'll be able to sign up after December 10th.
Absolutely, because the system is at an item, and we'll need law school graduates who graduate next May to be able to sign up, and they will be able to as well. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Our next, Anthony Giudice, your line's open, sir.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me?
I can.
Don't take offense. I'm just asking.
I'm ready for it. Anthony and I have a history.
How, and give me specifics, please, and please don't start your answer with "as I said." How is the electronic system going to be any more effective than the paper system in rooting out, notarios and unscrupulous skunks, unethical practitioners? I think in theory it's a great idea, but I'm skeptical of the federal government anyway. Give me some specifics as to how that's going to happen. I'm just asking.
Sure. Well, I won't say as I said, but forgive me if I do repeat myself a little bit. We do think that the online registry with the personal information included there, that then is accompanied by the actual photo identification at a physical EOIR location and the verification of that person, and then that unique EOIR ID number that is required to appear on the EOIR 27 and 28 will allow our adjudicators to know that the person is legitimate, that they are not a notario. In addition, we are looking forward to down the line, when resources are available, to be able to increase the efficiency of our court and your law practice by allowing you to do things online. And we know that a lot of the other courts in the country already have that ability and have had for quite some time, and we're actually very excited about the ability to offer that to people when we're able.
All right. Well, what about, if people that falsify, green cards and records like that are very good at it. What about people that file false information and present false ID at the EOIR in Buffalo, for example? How do you know?
I can't imagine, sir, that we would. You're right. There are a lot of people who are very good at falsifying identification. So our hope, of course, that such fraudsters would not take the step of appearing before a federal government official and presenting false identification, but there's really nothing that we could do to stop that.
That's honest. That's honest enough. I appreciate it very much.
I try to be honest. I would encourage you, if you're ever aware of that situation.
Oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I will. Don't worry.
You and anyone else who's listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Operator, next question.
Jesse Manale, your line is open.
Hi, thank you for taking this call. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah. So I have very serious concerns about the in-person validation process, and there are a lot of courts, especially the circuit courts, where business is conducted telephonically, and so if you're going to require in-person validation for somebody who's appearing in front of the Portland court but is representing a client, say for example, in Idaho or in Alaska, that's going to pose very serious problems in terms of that person traveling to the court in order to make that first appearance and to present that ID. And I think that EOIR needs to look at a workaround. One possible suggestion is, the attorney can certify that the document ID is a true and correct copy of the original and then sign the document in the presence of a notary, and that should give you every confidence that the guy who's making the representation has that ID in his or her possession. So this thing, I think, is a problem, and it will cause serious hardships and burdens on people who have to travel extremely long distances in order to do the in-person validation. So, you need to look at that and try to find ways to do a workaround. So that's a concern that I'd like to present.
And, sir, I'll certainly address your comment. Can you tell me where you're located, just if you don't mind?
Well, I'm in Portland, Oregon, so it's not going to be a problem for me to go to the court. I'm 2 blocks away. Okay. But, I'm a former EOIR liaison for ALA in the Oregon area, and I'm also on the national chapter. And so, we've got folks who practice in Spokane, say, for example, and the folks in Spokane can either go to Seattle, or they can go to Portland, or they can go to Boise, or they can go to Helena. And, that's 300, 400, 500 miles in one direction. So you're looking at significant distances in terms of traveling in order to do the in-person verification. And you say it's a one-time deal, but, somebody's got to make that trip.
Sure. And to address, since you're talking specifically about the sort of Pacific Northwest of our country, there are, and I encourage you to go to the website. This is the only one that I will name off because it's specific to your question and of general interest. The personal appearance is a requirement of the Department of Justice security order that relates to this identification verification. So that is the reason for it. And as you've stated, we do believe that the initial one-time only burden is worth the effort. That said, those in Alaska, Idaho, and Montana will have the ability, there is one day, about 3.5 hours a day, set up for each of those locations where a DHS counsel has agreed to be present and present the photo identification, verify the photo identification of the person and verify for EOIR via VTC that is the person. So that verification will be, that process, will be available in those locations because we did recognize the significant added burden given the geography and roads, if you will, in that area of the country. So I hope that helps alleviate your concern somewhat.
Well, we'll see. And, there's going to be much gnashing of teeth and groaning, I imagine, as this process is rolled out. But, hopefully we can be partners in this thing and we can get this done as efficiently as possible. But again, we would hope that EOIR would also be accommodating and understanding and provide opportunities to allow folks who can't complete the e-verification process to continue to represent their clients.
Well, as I said, there is the opportunity if a person is just absolutely unable within the next 6 months from Monday to appear in person in an immigration court or before the board to do their identity verification. There is the wiggle room, if you will, for an immigration judge to give someone a one-time waiver of that requirement with the understanding that they will take care of it immediately. So we have considered the issues that you're raising and have identified the way that we've established as the best way forward. Thanks again for your comment.
If I could just make one additional comment, and it's sort of related to the fact that this is one-sided and that only the private bar is engaged in this activity. I mean, from an e-filing perspective, it doesn't make my practice any more efficient if I can only electronically serve the BIA or the Immigration Court, but then I still have to print out a hard copy and send it to ICE counsel. So I am somewhat concerned about this one-sided comment in the same sort of way that a previous caller was. And so to the extent that you're creating an e-filing system and you want to create efficiencies via this technology, please seriously consider bringing DHS counsel on board with this process, because it saves me time at the copier. If I can just scan this thing into a PDF and send it to both the court and opposing counsel through this process that you're implementing, then that's certainly the thing that you want to create versus having me to scan it in as a PDF and then create a hard copy and send that hard copy to opposing counsel. So
absolutely, and we're in constant communications with the Department of Homeland Security, and we will continue to discuss with them all issues relevant to the way that the efficiencies work in the Immigration Court. To be fair to those in the room and on the phone, I'm going to move on to the next person, but thanks again for your comments. In the room?
I have one question and one comment. The question is, how are the judges, as a practical matter, going to be monitoring or verifying that practitioners have actually done it? Is there going to be an online way for them to check, or are they going to be asking people to call out in open court their registration number, or how does that work?
The EOIR 27 or 28 that's attached to the file will include the unique EOIR ID number, and you will only have that EOIR ID number if you've completed both portions of the registration process.
So it's going to get into the file on ongoing matters too, or?
Yes. And I'm sorry, for those of you on the phone, the question was how the immigration judges would be able to verify that the person appearing before them is, in fact, registered. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
And the other comment, and this is just food for thought to address the pro bono, really I had it in mind about the pro bono issue, but it could potentially apply to the remote geographic location. I'm most familiar with the District of Columbia system, but they have where you can appear pro hoc vice without becoming admitted to the bar of the court up to 5 times. They figure on under 5 times you're not a regular practitioner. So that could be something that could address the pro bono concern. And the other one is you don't have to pay or be an active member of the bar of the court in terms of your dues if you're appearing pro bono only. And since I think, if I have it correctly, E28 does have a designation for if you're appearing pro bono, that might be another way to track, or come up with some mechanism that would allow minimum use exception for pro bono.
Okay, so the comment in the room was about the fact that jurisdictions allow individuals to appear before court pro hoc vice up to 5 times because they don't consider that to be a regular practitioner before the court, and also that if you're appearing in a pro bono capacity, there's no requirement to be barred, and she's referring to the District of Columbia. The pro bono requirement
to be
actively barred and pay dues.
You just don't have to pay dues as an active member.
Okay, well, there certainly are exceptions under the pro bono rule. I know DC has Rule 49 that allows people to practice pro bono if they're not licensed in the state. And there are other states considering similar things. But that is, at this point, as I said, not something that EOIR has considered the process, and it's just not something. Of course. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, but I will state again, there is, the one-time not to be abused exception that if someone just could not register for whatever reason by December 10th, that the immigration judge at their discretion can allow the representation. So we did give one workaround. Any other questions in the room before I go back to the phone? Yes.
I guess another comment along the lines of Karen's is I wonder for the law students, you said you're not requiring to register, is that right?
Correct.
Will they then be sort of under the auspices of a registered law school clinic? I wonder, however that process is working, it seems like there could be a similar system in place for pro bono agreements sort of under the auspices of a registered NGO that's providing mentorship.
Well, with the law student, again, the concern was the transient nature of the fact that, they're in a clinic for a semester, and it's easy to get them in the system and registered, but then we can't guarantee that they get out. And that's really the concern, if there's someone who's not re-identified, if you will, as their new place as an attorney once they're no longer a law student. To answer your question, I'm reviewing some notes because this is one area with which I'm less familiar, but clinics themselves, much like law firms, will not be able to register as a body. That's not the way that it will work. They will, of course, have law students who are under a supervisory attorney, but again, because of the unique nature of a law student, it differs, of course, from a pro bono attorney who is, in fact, licensed on their own, whereas a law student is working under supervision because of the requirement that they have a supervisor in order to practice, I use that term loosely, law.
Right. So I guess I'm just throwing out and like Karen, I don't know, I know you can't reply today, but I wondered if there's some possible workaround there where, for example, maybe a supervising attorney in a law firm that frequently takes pro bono cases can serve as a registered attorney for that firm. So that when we have attorneys, we have multiple associates taking one case only, they might be looked across under that number or something.
The comment in the room to which she did not request a response was simply, could we find a workaround for pro bono attorneys, or attorneys interested in doing pro bono work in maybe a one-off case that would be akin to the law student situation in the law clinic. Operator, are there more calls on the phone?
Yes, we have a handful at this time. So our first from Sister Veronica Schuler. Ma'am, your line is open.
Thank you for the opportunity to have a question. I just have a practical question. I'm looking at the instructions from the Houston office about going down to register in person. And from what I can understand, it appears that the court staff will enter in the second step and then the eRegistry will be complete. Is that true?
If I understand your question, it is that once you complete the second step of the photo identity verification, that your eRegistration will be complete, yes.
Okay, and then will something be given to us so that we can prove that we have e-registered?
You will have your unique EOIR ID sent to you, and that will be your proof. That will be, yes.
And that will be sent by email?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Operator, the next call.
Eugene Glicksman, your line is now open.
Thank you. I've got two questions based on the emails that had come out before and also the presentation today.
Sure.
The emails discuss the registration process, but there seems to be an unanswered portion as to the registration itself. Will the registration be done at the local court and be valid only for that local court, or is that registration valid nationwide once it's completed?
Thank you for that clarifying question. Your registration will be valid nationwide. The purpose of proceeding to the local immigration court is to try to make it as least burdensome as possible for you. So we're having the hours available for the identity verification at every immigration court to give people as many opportunities geographically as possible.
All right, thank you for that. Now, following up on that, I'm in the New York area, and we've been advised by the court administrator that the contractor personnel that was supposed to be present to help with the second part of the registration, in fact, won't be present for an extended period, and because of that, the registration days are being cut back somewhat severely. In order to prepare for this and to be able to have a little more familiarity with what is needed, the slides that you just presented today, can you make those available to us so we can at least review the slides and get to know what's going to be asked of us so that once this goes live on Monday, we'll already be somewhat prepared in terms of inputting the information?
Yes, sir. The slides and the audio portion of the presentation will be available in that same Engage with EOIR box on our homepage. You'll be able to access the entire presentation, as I said, along with the audio. The trick is it won't be available immediately because of federal law requirements. We have to wait for closed captioning to be completed on the event. But as soon as we're able to have that complete, we will post it online.
Well, do you know if that's going to be available before Monday when this whole thing kicks off?
It will absolutely not be available before Monday, before the whole thing kicks off. However, should you have specific questions, be it Monday morning, Monday evening, or sometime next week, next month, next year, feel free to reach out to us at pao.eoir@usdoj.gov, We also have an email address established that we will post to the web that's specific to eRegistry, and that is eregistration.info@usdoj.gov. Again, that's eregistration.info@usdoj.gov. And to my knowledge, the hours posted on the court, we've only just made sure that they were all accurate. Everything posted on the web currently is up to date and accurate. So if you look right now at New York, what you see there is what we expect to be.
And from what I've seen, that's only 1 day a week over the next couple of weeks.
I'm not familiar with the details of each immigration court, but if that's what you saw on the website for the court at which you're looking, then that's correct.
Which presents a bit of a problem for doing the registry and going over if you don't know ahead of time what's needed, since it's kicking off the same day that the website is going live.
Well, if you look down in the instructions, I believe there's also an alternative. If for some reason the days and hours the court is available is completely unworkable for you, you're out of the country, you're unable to access an internet connection for those 4 weeks, something along those lines, there should be an alternative solution for you available detailed on the page. So I encourage you to go back and look at that page again. But again, to be fair, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Thank you.
Our next now.
We have one question in the room, operator.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, I did receive at least 3 and possibly 4 of those emails from the New York court, like, it's going to be these hours, and no, it isn't, and sorry for all the different emails, change, and I can just say I can foresee people not specifically talking about New York, but driving long distances to try to do it and finding out it's not available that day, that hour, and I don't know how you're going to accommodate that.
Okay, well, thank you. The comment in the room was just reaffirming what the gentleman just said regarding New York apparently sending out emails that contradicted one another regarding what hours would be available. I would encourage everyone, and please tell everyone else you know, go to the website. What is on the website will be up to date and accurate. That is where you should get your source of information. Everything coming from headquarters will be accurate. And I'm looking at Mark from the court. Would you want to say something?
Sure.
Okay.
Check back for courts, the larger courts. We will have a contractor shortly on duty. It's going to be we'll have them quicker than we thought. And so check back, all of the folks in New York, check back again, because as soon as we get our contractor, we will have fuller hours for this verification process. I'm sorry for that. It's just we had a delay at bringing them on at the start. So the hours were restricted just because the court's limited staff at the present time. But in the future, the contract is going to be shortly there, and there will be full, wide open hours.
And Mark,
and we also, because of the numbers of attorneys, we also have we've divided by alphabetical order so that New York has a large number of attorneys. So we didn't want to have to. We just can't have all thousands or so show up one day.
How do you get in at 26? Because they don't let you in either if you don't have an appointment notice or a hearing notice.
The court administrators worked out something. Bring your that validation, the last screen you got, and that she's worked out a deal with the guards at Federal Plaza.
the question was regarding entry into 26 Federal Plaza, but we're going to restrict questions about individual immigration courts. If you have those, please contact us by email at the addresses I previously stated, because if we were to go into details of every immigration court, we certainly would not get out of here at 4 o'clock. I want to make one clarification, though, on New York, just because we did go down that path. Mark, when the hours are expanded due to the contract staff coming on board, the hours currently posted, however, will still be available. Okay, so those hours online are up to date and accurate and will not change. They will just be expanded. Okay. Operator, a question on the phone.
Amy Fanny, your line's open.
Thank you. Just a couple sort of logistical questions. I know Ms. Grise asked earlier about the bars, but I would also follow up on that. For example, some people are licensed, but they're not in active status in a bar, so maybe there could be some clarification on that page where it asks you to list all of the bars, because it's not entirely clear if you need every jurisdiction where you have been licensed, for example, even if you're not currently active. And I guess I also have some questions about sort of the mechanics of the E27, E28. I know historically we've had many problems with CIS with the G28 registrations and getting them
recorded. So one of the things I'm wondering is if you file an E-27 or E-28 electronically, and then, for example, there is a change, you move, you change an address or something, does that, and you update it on the system, does that somehow affect what you all have access to, or do we need to manually go in and refile all of those? I'm just not sure about the data sharing and whether it's like a live thing that you're looking at, or we would have to go back and manually redo it.
I'm going to try, I'm not positive I understand your question, but let me try to answer it and see if I'm right. You will not need to refile an EOIR-27 or EOIR-28 for any case in which you're currently participating. It will only be if you have a new case that you will need to file the EOIR-27 or 28 with your EOIR ID number through eRegistry included. Is that what you're asking?
Not exactly. What I'm asking is if your personal information changes, like on your address, can you just go into the system and change it on the system, or you have to actually refile all of those E-28s?
You would need to refile the E-27 or 28, yes.
Okay.
And to answer your other question, it is included, and I'm certain there are many people who have not read through all of the information that we posted online, but in our FAQ document on our e-registration page, we do include, when it asks about what information you need to provide when you're registering, for attorneys it says bar admission information, including bar number if applicable, for all the jurisdictions in which they are licensed to practice, including those in which they are inactive. So just so you know, it does include inactive jurisdictions as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question and comment. Operator, next.
Iman Jajoni-Damon, your line is open.
Hello. I just have a clarification and a question. It is my understanding that once you register with your local court, are we automatically also registered with the BIA, or do we have to personally appear in Virginia and register?
Absolutely not. We'd have to do that. Everybody playing tickets. No. You are registering with EOIR, and EOIR includes the Immigration Court and the Board of Immigration Appeals, so you do not need to make a separate appearance before the board.
Excellent. I thought so. I just wanted to clarify it. Also, I had a comment. The gentleman earlier on the phone said, why don't we just do e-filing for everything, because we will eventually do e-filing with the court and so forth. You know, the federal circuits, when we file the PFRs, we serve everybody, including government attorneys. We serve them all via email. So it's an excellent system, and I surely hope we can institute it as well with the EOIR and serve everybody by just click of a button on our computer. It's extremely convenient, and we are going green, and we're not wasting paper as well. So that's just one of my comments, and I certainly hope that you guys would consider doing that as the federal circuit courts are. Now, the question I have, I do understand that by implementing this system, you are trying to eliminate unauthorized practice of law, which, in my opinion, is not the problem with the EOIR system. It is definitely a major problem with USCIS. I see them all the time practicing law unauthorized. Are we eventually going to implement this with USCIS?
Well, I'm glad that you asked it in that way, because it also dovetails nicely with your request to be able to serve DHS ICE counsel. As you know, Immigration and Customs Enforcement and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services are both within the Department of Homeland Security. So I don't have answers to those questions, as we're part of the Department of Justice. We're very separate entities, and I would encourage you to contact your liaisons there with those questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Operator, next, thank you.
Elizabeth Sweet, your line is open.
Hello.
And she disconnected. I believe that was by error, but we'll go on. Kathy Doan, your line is open.
Hi, yes. I'm with the Capital Area Immigrants Rights Coalition, and Heidi, who is on our staff, was in the room and asked a question earlier and also expressed our concerns around how this would impact on pro bono attorneys. I have been on the website and looking at the various court hours, and I see that Arlington is going to essentially have open hours, 8 to 12 and then 1 to 4, whereas Baltimore is only going to have open hours for like the first week of registration and then going to appointment only. I would strongly encourage that one thing that would be very helpful to those organizations working with pro bono attorneys is to really encourage courts to have open hours. I'm concerned with an appointment-only system that might really be very limiting. So again, in the spirit in which we're all trying to, encourage pro bono representation of immigrants, that would be helpful. And then also just a point of clarification, how long is it between, so you do your online registration and then you go in and you present your ID. At which point does that then become live? Could you do it on the same day as the hearing, and then you go into the hearing and you can tell the judge you're all ready? Or is there some lag time between when you're going to get an email with that number? So just sort of logistically, what is the time lag between you completing that second step and you actually being registered and getting that number you need?
We expect it, and of course, we will be going through this for the first time with all of you as well on Monday, but our expectation is it to be approximately 2 hours after you appear.
Okay, thanks.
And also, just noting back to your hours, as I'm sure you can imagine, the Office of the Chief Immigration Judge has poured over trying to figure out the most availability possible for each immigration court based on the resources and the staff that we have available, and continuing to focus on the mission, which of course is adjudicating the cases. While we want and know that eRegistry will enhance that mission, we can't move our staff away from making sure that the courts are running smoothly to accommodate hours. So that's why we have the appointments, so that if people cannot make it, if it just is too burdensome to get there when the court is available and open, that they will be able to contact for appointments.
Well, just a point of clarification, I mean, on the website, say for Baltimore, there are no hours available after, I think it is June 28th. It says by appointment only, if I'm reading that correctly. So that was my point, that they didn't appear to have any walk-in hours. So my suggestion was, to the extent possible, that walk-in hours be maintained at all courts. Whereas in Arlington, what's currently up on the website is there are walk-in hours. It's an open system between 8 and 12 and 1 to 4 ongoing. So I certainly understand the resource issue, certainly. It's just in terms of, to the extent that this is made as user-friendly as possible, particularly for those organizations that, partner with pro bono law firms, trying to make this as easy for them as possible.
Sure, and I understand, and Arlington is able to accommodate that, but many of the courts will not be able to, and in terms of user-friendliness, we want to make sure that people are aware that if they walk in on July the 5th, if they just expect to walk in for an appointment in Baltimore, and I'm not familiar with just using Baltimore as an example because it's what you gave, but they might sit there for 3 hours because there's no one to do it. And we don't want that to happen to people, and that's why we've established the hours. The court knows for sure that they can do. As Mark said, if they're able to be expanded because we have more resources and staff available, we will certainly do that and update the web pages accordingly. But otherwise, outside of the hours posted to the web, it is by appointment only.
And I understand that, but my point is, when you go on Baltimore, and I was just on it, there are no hours posted after the 28th. So just that was just my point, to the extent that there could be in addition to the appointment only. So that's the point I just wanted to make. So thanks.
Thank you. Operator, we can move on to the next question.
Elizabeth Sweet, your line is open now.
Hello?
Elizabeth? Yes, Elizabeth.
Hello. Yes, it sounds like actually that the previous caller asked a similar question to what I was planning to ask about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Stacey Jones, your line is open now.
Hi, thank you. I have a similar issue where we also work with a lot of pro bono attorneys and had some of the same concerns, but more specifically, I was just wondering if there were any plans for EOIR to send out some sort of notice or something about this eRegistry process and requirement to any attorneys who have currently pending cases before the courts. And, I'm just thinking that obviously everyone in this room, in the room where you are and on the phone, we've been hearing about this. We hear it from Ayla, and, there's, immigration attorneys will have heard about this, but a lot of our pro bono attorneys don't regularly practice immigration law. And, obviously we're planning to do our best to follow up with all of our pro bono attorneys and let them know about all this in a timely fashion. But as I'm sure you're aware, a lot of immigration court cases can drag on for years and years. There's turnover at law firms. The attorneys don't always keep in touch, keep in contact with us as much as we might like. And so I'm worried that, some attorneys just might not hear about this if they're not in the normal practice of immigration law. So I was just wondering if there was any plans, like I said, to sort of send out a notice to anyone an attorney that already has a case pending to let them know that, you know, perhaps by the next time they come to court, they need to have complied with these new requirements?
Well, thanks for your comment. We just don't have a way to do that, but know that our focus also is on getting the word out. That's why we're having this event today. That's why we've been publishing documents to our website even before they were really ready to go. I don't know if you saw any of the FAQs or instructions prior to us even having dates available. We wanted everyone to know about this as soon as we possibly could, and we'll continue a communications campaign surrounding this as much as possible. However, I certainly understand your concern, especially involving pro bono attorneys with whom you might not have consistent contact. That's the perfect example in my mind, and I'm not an immigration judge and can't speak for them, but of where an immigration judge might, in his or her discretion, be able to grant the one-time exception. There's a pro bono attorney who had never heard of eRegistry because they hadn't thought about immigration law for a year, and this time next year they go before immigration court and are asked for their EOIR ID. That seems like the perfect time that an immigration judge might be able to grant that one-time exception.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And there's a question in the room, operator.
Am I correct in understanding that the one-time exception does not apply to the board? It can only be granted by IJs?
That is correct. Yes, the question in the room was, could the Board of Immigration Appeals allow the one-time exception? The answer to the question is no.
So if a pro bono attorney who's not registered, files a brief with the board, is the board going to just ignore the brief, or will they consider the brief to just consider the respondent as though they were not represented, as if it was the respondent?
The question in the room is, what would the Board of Immigration Appeals do if presented with a brief from an attorney who was not registered in eRegistry? And the answer to the question is, I don't know. But I would be happy to get you an answer if you'd like to send an email.
The one-time exception for immigration judges then, will that be written authority for that you can cite when we're requesting it from an immigration judge somewhere? It
is discretionary, entirely discretionary. It is included, I believe, in our FAQs. And then I'm going to look to Mark. Mark, is it in the new practice manual updates, the discretionary exceptions? It is in the rule. Yeah, it is in the rule. So the standard is extraordinary and rare circumstances, as it's published in the rule. And we believe there are also updates in the practice manual, which is available online currently. All right, operator, are there questions in queue?
3 at this time.
Okay.
Sister Schuler, your line's open.
I'm sorry, that was a mistake on my part. I don't have a question.
Okay, thank you.
Our next then, Rex Chen, your line is open.
I'd like to know, for the attorneys who are sworn in one state under one name and sworn in a second state under another name, should they be doing one registration listing both names, or should they do 2 different registrations, one for each name?
Well, there's one registry allowed per person, so you would want to use your current name and include both areas in both states in which you're licensed. And then I don't work for those states, but I would encourage you to update your name with the state bars.
Great. And another question I have is, I'm not sure you really thought it through when you estimated that to do the process of doing part 1 on the web, reading through the instructions, printing it out, going to the court, getting through the building security, getting your ID checked, going back to your office, that you think on average it's going to take 10 minutes per person?
Just the online portion, sir. Just the online portion, the estimate was 10 minutes. And certainly, that's an estimate and an average, so it might take some people a little bit longer who are slower typers or readers perhaps, or a little bit less time for someone who's a little more adept at those things. But no, it's only the online portion that the estimate is 10 minutes. We certainly recognize it will take longer for you to get to a court and park and go inside and take care of your photo identification.
Okay. I'm glad you say that you don't have to enter the ID number until December 10th, 2013. I believe all of the court notifications right now about their open hours have a contrary instruction that you must use it the moment you get it.
We very much encourage you to use it the moment you get it, but the requirement is not until December 10th.
So I want to point out to you that every court has issued instructions with the wrong information about that, because they're currently telling people they must use it the moment they get it, which is not the current instruction.
Okay, well, we'll review those pages. Thank you for pointing that out, and we will update as necessary.
And is there someone or some system to make sure that the database will not be used for improper purposes? You'll check that people aren't using the database improperly?
Can you be a little more specific about what you would consider improper use? I mean, each person is only able to access their own information.
Sure. Someone in EOIR who has the database privileges to look at the whole database decides to look at certain data for improper reasons, curious about someone's birth date, curious how old someone is, curious where someone's living.
Well, only to tell you that EOIR employees, like any federal government employee, are subject to background investigations, and any such use of the database for purposes outside of its intended purpose would certainly be subject to discipline. So,
I would feel much more comfortable if you actually had someone periodically checking to make sure it's actually being used properly by EOIR employees. Thanks.
Thank you. There's a question in the room, operator.
So as far as the one-time exception, would there be any guidance from headquarters to ICE on what using their meetings and when that might come up? Saying pro bono attorneys who may not know about the requirement. There are a lot of practitioners who practice immigration law that do a lot of other types of law and may not know about the requirements. And I'm just worried that if I did speaking of it for the first time from those attorneys and not
The question in the room is whether there will be guidance from headquarters to the individual immigration judges on how to apply the exceptional rare circumstance exception for people who may not be registered when they appear one time in court. To my knowledge, there's not yet been any such guidance. However, I'm sure the Office of the Chief Immigration Judge is evaluating the need for that, and if they feel it would be necessary, they would issue an OPPM or something similar. However, great, and we appreciate the feedback. However, do know that immigration judges are constantly undergoing training, and this is something that they have known is coming, and they're aware of everything, so conversations are happening. Thank you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to sort of extend the burden that we've been discussing about the in-person requirement. It's not only going to impact pro bono, but it's going to be impacting attorneys who practice with the board exclusively, and then also those attorneys who practice internationally, and are still able to file before the board. I don't believe they're the contract. I just wanted to fix it. So, I would feel for my pro bonos, but I think it's going to be impacting a lot more other attorneys who practice immigration. And it could be an overnight visit. It's going to be a 18-hour drive for many, plus to an immigration court that has limited hours. And hopefully when those hours are available, we'll see come Monday how available and receptive the clerk will be to facilitating the in-person registry. And I just hope that I really am hopeful that it will be worthwhile that meeting.
The comment in the room was just that there's a broader group of attorneys who represent people before immigration court, including, of course, pro bono attorneys, that may even include international attorneys, and that the impact on those who represent respondents before the board may be even greater due to the photo identity verification portion of registration. Did I capture that okay? Okay, thanks. And certainly the other portion of her comment, however, was she was hoping to see how accommodating the court administrators would be to allowing people for appointment hours if they're unable to make the posted hours. Certainly if you have any issues with that, we encourage you to try to go when the court has posted hours, because that is when we know there will be someone available for you if you can make it. If you have issues, you're not getting a response or there's other problems, please do email eregistration.info@usdoj.gov and we'll do our best to help. Operator, are there any questions in queue?
My last question is from Catherine Lampard. Your line is open.
Thank you. It's already been addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Today. Bye.
And I have no further questions over the phone lines.
Okay, operator, I'll look at the room one more time while we wait to see if anyone hits *1 for any questions on the phone. Any other questions in the room? I'm getting a lot of no shaking heads. Anyone else on the phone, operator?
No, I have none.
We'll give everyone one more minute.
I believe I'm getting a few in line. Esther Igwe, your line's open.
Okay. The only question that I will have at this time is my phone was not connected when you first started the program. I just want to know, what is the first part of the registration?
The first part of the registration is the online portion where you'll enter your basic personal information, and you'll then receive an email confirming that EOIR has received it. However, I'd also like to note for you, in case you weren't on for this part as well, as soon as we're able to get a closed captioning of today's presentation, both the slideshow and the audio portion will be available to you on our website. So I'd encourage you to go back and catch what you didn't hear.
Okay. Give me your website address again, sorry.
Sure. It's www.justice.gov/EOIR. And then you'll be able to find this information via the Action Center Engage with EOIR link.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
Operator, next question.
Julio Suarez, your line is open.
Thank you. I was just wondering, I heard the question regarding paralegals and how you could pass your username and password, but it would be discouraged. I was wondering if there's been any plans, and if not, I would perhaps suggest for some type of sub-user account where paralegals could sign in under a main attorney's account. Because the main purpose is for e-filing, as a practical matter, attorneys rely on paralegals for a lot of that work.
Well, if I use the word discourage, I misspoke. We don't discourage you from sharing it. It's just we encourage you to protect your information. Just like any username and password that you have, it's yours, and it's yours to do with as you see fit. In terms of making any sub-accounts, the purpose of eRegistry is to register attorneys and fully accredited representatives. So at this time, there's no plan for any kind of additional users in the system.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I have no further questions at this time.
Okay, we'll give folks a few more seconds. Anything new in the room? Okay, operator, if we don't have any more questions, we'll go ahead and end today's call.
Actually, I just had one pop in as you were speaking. Anthony Giudice, your line is open again.
Hi, me again. I'm a little unclear on something. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
I can.
When we register Monday, then we go to the spot where it says the court can finish part 2 of this thing, right?
Correct.
What if are those hours going to be just next week, or is it going to be every week, or what if we miss that? We're out of luck, or what?
Well,
how long does it go on for?
If you go to the individual, I don't unfortunately have any of the courts actually, except for the ones mentioned today in my head as to what times are available. But if you go to that e-registration initiative page, there's an identity verification link. And if you click that, each immigration court is listed. If you choose the immigration court closest to you, it will detail for you the days and hours they have available for you to come in. In addition, if for some reason it is too burdensome for you to make it during those posted days and hours, you can email the court administrator or other email given to set up an appointment outside.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Operator, anything else?
No, I have none at this time.
All right, again, we'll give them a few seconds.
I have no questions in queue.
Great, operator. At this time, we'll go ahead and end the call. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.